Hey there, Gemini. Let's have a look at your week ahead from the 7th of October to the 13th. That's from the full moon in the full moon in Aries right the way through to the third quarter moon phase of the moon in Cancer. So this is a lunar week, not a calendar week. I prefer to keep it on a planetary basis, but it's more or less a week. And in this week ahead, there are some lovely things that are going on. For instance, Mars is moving out of its exact square with Pluto. It's moving out, and Mercury, your ruling planet, is actually moving into a square with Pluto. And so that's a pretty big energy for you to be experiencing, which I'll be talking about. Venus is coming into an opposition with Saturn and later into an opposition with Neptune. Again, these are real sort of high level energies that are likely to affect your week in a different way. Some of the big themes, I think, are to do with permission versus sovereignty, and I'm wanting to explore that as much as I can. If you're new to this channel, by the way, my name's Louisa. Hello. And this is an ascendant forecast. Really, like, I use a Western tropical whole sign model. So I use that so it's more real and relevant to as many people as possible. If you use a Placidus chart, when you're looking at your own chart, then I recommend that you listen to this recording for Gemini and then also listen to Cancer, because some of that will also be relevant. But really, this is like a regular check-in with the universal energies and what possibilities are coming up for them. I always like to look at things in a way such as, how can you feel good about being yourself? That's what I'm really aiming for here. And how can we align with what's naturally unfolding for the Gemini ascendant? So let's see what's going on, shall we? Before I do that, I just want to quickly put a shout out to all the people that have supported this channel, past, present, and future. That hasn't happened yet. So, in the past, and also what's going on right now. So, some of you are supporting me in the membership. I've got a membership on School. So thank you so much, because you help me do what I love to do the most. Now, my big question for you in this week ahead, Gemini, is where in my life do I need to stop waiting for permission? That's a big one. And start acting from self-trust. So stick around, because at the end, I will have answered this to the best of my ability. And I think it'll be quite useful, so it's a useful thing to know. So the first thing I'm really noticing, and it's got to be this Mercury movement, because Mercury, your ruling planet, is in a square to Pluto on the day of the full moon in Aries. And this square with Pluto, there's Mercury down here, this square with Pluto is ongoing. However, by the end of the week, Mercury has just moved out of it. So, it's very active at the beginning. Towards the end of it, Mercury's out of it. Now, Mercury likes to keep things light, I have to say. Mercury likes to keep on moving. He doesn't like to get too embroiled in matters of darkness. Mercury likes to move around and sort of flutter into things and flutter out. I think of him as a bit of a butterfly. Obviously, he's also known for delivery, like delivering messages, delivering parcels. So there's a lot of context of movement with Mercury. He's also known as the person who communicates between the gods and the humans. So I do think he's also like subject to flashes of insight as well. Now, in his square with Pluto really takes him to the dark side, or tries to. Pluto takes him into some very serious psychology and some really deep subjects that maybe Mercury's a little uncomfortable with. And so you might find that you're actually very intense in this first week, more so than usual. You might even think that you're a bit morose. And it can come up as a biting sense of humor and sort of over use of sarcasm. So it can take you to the dark side a little bit. Mercury is passing out of this, halfway through the week. So just bear in mind that this isn't permanent. This isn't necessarily the start of a depressive illness or anything like that. You're just going into this particular moment in time just being a little bit more skeptical, a little bit more scathing than usual. And so it's likely to feel a little bit off. But I always think whatever's going on with the planets, there's something there to learn. And there will be something that's going on. Now, you'll also see that Mercury Your ruling planet is in a square to Jupiter. It's also in an opposition to Chiron. So, yeah, I mean, the opposition to Chiron, a bit like the biting energy, Chiron's a wounded healer. And so you may feel that some of the communications you're either engaging in or hearing from other people, it's hurt talk. You know, it's not like healed adult talking to healed adult recipient. It's hurt adult being heard by a hurt adult. And, you know, none of us, I don't think, well, I maybe met a couple of people who feel free of the hurt, shame, blame, anger scenario. And even those people that say, yeah, I don't feel that. I'm always looking from the side thinking, really? Are you sure about that? But, you know, like most of us have some kind of sore area where if somebody tramples over that area, all of a sudden there's this reaction, this triggering. And so, you know, with Chiron and Pluto working with Mercury and then Jupiter exaggerating it and bringing it into a much bigger significance. Yeah, this is a sore spot. Now, with this full moon in Aries, and Aries is a sign that tends to blow up when emotionally triggered, and there's nothing more emotionally triggering than a full moon. You may well feel even more aggrieved because straight after the full moon, the moon is making a conjunction to Chiron, thereby being in a square to Pluto, an opposition to Mercury, your ruling planet, and also a square to Jupiter. So you can see this full moon, it's just not a full moon on its own, it's also implicated in the kind of blowing up of the sort of tense scenarios from this grand square in your chart. And I never know why it's called a grand square, because it doesn't feel that grand to me as I'm looking at it. I think it looks like, oh, how soon can I get out of it? But yeah, this grand square is pretty hardcore. You know, it's not for the faint-hearted. So you're probably not feeling very Geminian at the moment. You're probably feeling anything but Gemini. You're probably feeling like, oh, good God, can I just sleep through it already? But here's the thing, here's the kicker. There's a yod at the beginning of this week, and it's pointing at your ruling planet, Gemini. It's coming from Saturn and Neptune, and it's also coming from Uranus. To me, that's a reminder that everywhere where you're feeling different, where you're feeling like you don't understand people because everyone's so boring, and you're feeling very different and transformed. And also where you're feeling very different ideologically, you know, like your sense of what's right in the world is very, very different to how it's been historically. To me, the difference in your visions for harmonious living, they're impacting your Mercury, and they're kind of pushing you actually to have some of these deeper, darker, more challenging conversations. And it just might not be comfortable. And that can also just be okay. What I would really urge you to not do, and that is to kind of create a massive shitstorm and kind of leave people with it, you know, unless you're really wanting to shut the door in somebody's face, which I don't recommend, because I think there are much more graceful ways of doing things. Also, I just think, you know, Venus is coming into Libra at the end of this week. You know, it's a fellow air sign. And when Venus comes in here, you're going to feel very, very different. You know, this is a time when romance might be springing up, or there's a sense of greater ease around all the things that you love about life. And so I don't think leaving this week with a kind of, yeah, whatever, talk to my hand kind of attitude, I don't think that's going to help you. So remember, there's the danger of hurt people talking to other hurt people and things blowing up a bit. So, you know, be forgiving with yourself. Allow yourself some extra time to process a few things. Know that your ruling planet's coming out of this sucky, horrible grand square, and he's going to be moving. Like by the end of this week, you're going to be feeling much, much better. You know, Mercury's coming into a conjunction with Mars, showing that you're feeling a lot more opportunistic. You're getting your life in gear. It feels like things are moving beautifully. Both of them are aligning to Jupiter perfectly, and also going into a trine with Saturn and Neptune. And so to me, the picture changes very quickly. So yeah, keep it light because more opportunities are coming in, and you don't want to have closed something down just as all the good stuff's coming in. So that's my thought. That's my two pennyworth. But let's go back to the beginning where I was really talking about, where in my life do I need to stop waiting for permission and start acting from self-trust? Okay. Well, self-trust for me is a real sort of Jupiter thing. It's also a Venus thing, but then also, with your ruling planet being Mercury, and Mercury is all about the communication. Mercury is all about friendships and connections. I also think that should be part of this equation. Like, how can you come back into self-trust? As I'm looking at this week ahead, I'm looking at, at the end of this week, Mercury is coming into this lovely trine with Jupiter. It's that gorgeous, gorgeous energy. And so what I'm thinking, and this is going to get stronger and stronger, it's getting stronger as we're going into the next week. We've also got this lovely sextile energy between Jupiter and Venus at the start of this week. So I really think the Jupiter and Mercury energy, which is about friendships and the way we connect to people, is strong. This is the thing that's helping you get back into your self-trust. For you to trust yourself is to know that you're part of a group, you're part of a sort of busy hub. It's important for you to belong. So belonging is, I think, how you're coming into self-trust. And with Jupiter in your second house, this is a brilliant opportunity for you to experience life with a sense of, I can do this. And, Jupiter in the sign of Cancer in the second house, to me, is understanding emotional richness, understanding emotional connection, emotional value. And so how you come into self-trust, I think, is by considering the emotional value of your connections. It's not about closing yourself off. It's about opening yourself up. Now, when we look at Pluto in the 9th house, it's kind of interesting, actually, because Pluto can be very bossy and really insist on things being his own way. And Pluto is going to be up this part of your chart for a long time. And he's in the sector of your chart about diversity, equality, travel, spirituality, religion, faith, politics, law, all these higher context ideas. So you may well find that you're feeling conditioned as to who you can hang out with based on everybody's philosophical take on the world, or their religious hot take, or their political, more likely their political hot take. So you may well find that you're kind of a bit like Harry Potter, everyone gets sorted with the sorting hat, they get put in Gryffindor or whatever it's called. I forget all of the different Slytherin, so you're putting on your sorting hat. Only right now it feels like people are not needing to put on a sorting hat to sort out who you want to hang out with. There are lots of very secret codes and also overt codes, to help determine if somebody's your kind of person. But do you know what? What I think has probably hurt everybody, especially social people like yourself, with these sorting hats based on political leanings and philosophical religious things. It's matching a load of people on just one thing, and that is, which movement are you like joining? You might find that there are people, if you were looking at how you connect with people based on your favorite hobby, like if it's meditation or yoga or gardening or horse riding or golf or whatever it is that you like, DJing, dancing, like whatever is passionate and lights you up. If you're not going straight to what lights you up, but instead you're going via a group to do with politics or religion, and putting that as the first level of connection. They have to be this. You're cutting yourself off from potentially loads of people that you've got so much more in common, because I actually think when we have fun with other people, that's when we are really in common with them, on real, on subjects that touch your heart. Now, it's not to say that subjects to do with politics and religion and philosophy don't already touch your heart, but actually, are they touching your intellect first and then your heart, and kind of doing this kind of hot step between the two? So you never know which one it is that's, in charge. Is it your brain or your heart, or is it both? They've got so entangled that you can't really tell them apart, and it almost becomes an ideological possession. And so to me, this is where the permission is coming from. I didn't realise that this is where I was going to go with this, by the way. Where in my life do I need to stop waiting for permission? That is, like, be free to choose people to hang out with and to socialise with, not based on the things the labels that have been made more important than anything else, really, for the last few years, but actually more like the last decade. Definitely in the last 5 years since COVID. These labels as to what kind of person we are based on like one viewpoint or a couple of viewpoints. The funny thing is, when you're judging people from a political perspective, you'll probably find you're not completely in alignment with every single political view that your party shares, or every different religious view that your religion shares. There's going to be little bits that you're not quite in alignment with. But, if you're meeting somebody just because you like DJing, you're not going to judge them in quite the harsh way that you might feel judged, or that you might judge others by. And so to me, the permission, waiting for permission, it's like, you decide who you hang out with. It's not the people that are of a similar political leaning or religious leaning, or based on your location. It's none of their business who you hang out with. And so how you come into self-trust is you're learning just to meet people and connect people with people based on who's lighting you up. From their personal perspective. That's what I'm really seeing. And if I believed I was enough, what new possibility would I allow myself to explore? Well, do you know what, Gemini? I think you would want to explore sharing time with people of a vast different persuasion of situations, because, the Gemini energy is jack of all trades. I remember learning that earlier on, when I was learning astrology, and thinking, bloody hell, I'd really love to be a Gemini. God, they've got it all. Like, they're able to do this, they're interested in that. They're not as specialized as some some signs, because they have an interest in everything. They connect to everyone and don't necessarily commit to everything. There's a real sort of open curiosity going on. And I think actually, if you're not, if you're already in that place of being enough, it absolutely doesn't matter who you're connecting with, because you'll always be able to find some goodness in the people you're connecting with, because you're connecting with people and situations based on what's going on in your heart, not what's going on in your head, but literally from that possibility of allowing yourself to think, how can I have more fun? How can I have more connection? How can I have more love? How can I have more of everything? So, yeah, I really didn't see that this was where this was going, but I hope it's useful. Now, if this has spoken to you at some level, and yeah, I understand some of what I've just shared might be a little bit uncomfortable, and of course it would be, because there's a flipping great big grand square going on in your chart around these areas, and Pluto on that ninth house is absolutely ideological and wanting to control the ideologies that are going on for you. But if this spoke to you and you want more, then check out my membership. I do Monday to Friday forecasts. I also do weekly love and relationship and connection forecast for all signs, and also a weekly money, career and ambition forecast for all 12 signs as well. So that could be quite helpful for you. Or if you just like to sort of hang out in a session and explore your chart with me, I'm really happy to do that. All you need to do is just connect with me in the links below. You can literally just book directly into my diary. That way you get some choice as to when you might want to work with me. So just, if that's helpful, it is. If not, I'll catch you next time, hopefully. Thanks for joining me today, and let's carry on this conversation in a week's time. Let's see what else is coming up. Have a great week, and catch up with you all soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.